All right, let's start talking about phase 3 for the territory battle. So this is going to be a general guide of how to approach the phase, but the important thing to remember is to follow your officers. What they say is what you should do. This is just a general approach. So all the times that I'm going to be talking about are going to be in Eastern Daylight Time. I believe that is 4 hours behind GMT. It's 3 hours ahead of Pacific time, which is when the territories drop. So right now the territories are opening at 6 a.m. Pacific. That is 9 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so this phase has 3 territories. It has a bottom territory, a middle territory, and a top territory. The top territory has ships. It has 1 deployment, 1 platoon, and 1 combat mission, and that is exclusively for ships. We have a middle territory with a platoon, a deployment, and 2 combat missions. And the bottom territory has a platoon, a deployment, a combat mission, and a special combat mission, which we have not seen until now. And this is rewarding Rolo shards, and it requires a 5-star Captain Han Solo and Hoth Rebel Soldier. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is at 9 a.m. Eastern, when this drops, you don't want to do anything. The devs had suggested to not attack in the first 2 hours because of the client restarts that we're getting. So that 2 hours will give your officers some time to check all of the platoons and likely give some recommendations for the people who should be best for donating. So what you want to do in those 2 hours is just chill, check out the platoons, and wait for your officers to give some recommendations. 2 hours later at 11 a.m., you're going to start in this bottom territory because it is the more important of the two because of this special mission. You will look into the platoons and the toons that you have that are available to donate, you will fill. And when I say available, I mean that you will not be using them in the combat missions. And we do have a special mission plus 3 other combat missions. So you need up to 4 high quality teams. So you need to make sure that the toons that you're donating to these platoons you will not need. So give this a few hours for your guildmates and your officers to find the people who have the lowest of these toons and make sure that you get all of these filled. So start in this bottom territory, start filling them out and get those holes filled out and work kind of at a gradual pace to get these filled, and do the same thing on the middle territory. Get these platoons filled up, but be careful to not spend the toons that you will need in these 4 combat missions. If you don't qualify for the Rolo, it will be 3, but that's still 3 toons or 3 teams that you will need, and these missions are going to start getting a lot harder. While you're waiting for these platoons to be filled, and while you're doing that, you can do this top territory. So do the same thing. Start filling out your platoons. And same thing, remember not to spend the ships that you are going to need in the combat mission. The combat mission you need 8 ships, and I believe it's only light side ships. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the platoons. But so you're going to fill in the platoons first. Then once your platoon is done, there's only 1 territory for ships. So once the platoons are filled and they're good to go, you can go ahead and go into the combat missions, and you want to make sure that all the platoons are filled. So wait for your guild to fill out the platoon. Then go into your combat missions, and once you're done with combat missions, you can go ahead and dump your deployment with ships and be done. Now, once both of these platoons are filled for this middle and bottom territory, you want to start with the combat missions. And if you qualify for this special combat mission, you want to do that one first because the prizes are so good. And you want to do this with your top team. You need to complete the entire mission. It's not like the other combat missions where it's just get as far as you can. You need to complete the entire thing to get the rewards. Once that one's done, you can go into the other combat missions with your other top teams and just get as far as you possibly can. This needs to be done soon. It needs to be done after the platoons, and it needs to be done before deployment. So it does need to be done in a reasonable amount of time so that you have time for everyone to deploy. Deployment needs to happen after you do all of the combat missions, so both of the combat missions in this territory and then both of the combat missions in this territory. All 4 of those need to be done by everyone before you start deploying. The reason for that is if you start deploying in one of these territories and max out your GP, if there are unfinished combat missions, anyone who then does those combat missions essentially wastes those guild points. So you want all of the possible guild points from combat missions and then throw everything in. So do the combat missions and then hold off until probably a scheduled time by your officers to then announce to deploy. And when you're deploying, what you want to do is first 2-star both of the phases, and it will tell you in the deployment, it'll tell you how much is needed for the next star. Once you get both the phases to 2-star, there'll likely be a phase that will be easier. It'll have less guild points needed to get to that 3rd star, so focus on that one first. And if you are the member that your deployment will push it over the maximum, then make sure to split your deployment and put the remaining deployment in the other territory. That's kind of the general overview. I hope you are all having as much fun with these territory battles as I am, and we will see you on the next phase.